Hello again to another episode of Behind the Curtain. My name is Carly, and I'm going to be the moderator again for today. If you're watching us live, welcome, and we would love to see you participate by sending any questions and comments you have into the live chat down below. If you're watching us after hours, then we would love to hear some feedback. Send us some comments on our YouTube channel, or you can also email us at info@majestictheater.com. And lastly, if programming like this is something that you value, then we would love to see you go over to majestictheater.com and giving us a donation. And you can also watch all of our past Behind the Curtain episodes. But I think I've talked enough. So without further ado, I would love to introduce Eric and Danny. Hey, you guys. Thanks for being here today.
Hey there. Thank you, Carly. Eric, how you doing? Hey, quick note for you folks tuning in. The Majestic Children's Theater, the production they are streaming now is The Velveteen Rabbit. And quick reminder, next week my guest is Dave Madsen. He's retired now from the news business. Well, actually, he gets dragged in, I think, and he does an occasional on-screen kind of thing for ABC. Anyway, Dave Madsen next week, and the week after that, Irene Thornton. And okay, well, let's get started. Eric, welcome. You there? Can you hear me?
I can now. There's a little bit of a freeze going on.
Okay. Well, we'll kind of work around it or somehow work through it. So, question for we ask this of everybody. This crazy life that we lead. What drew you to it?
What was the question? I'm not getting it.
What drew you to this life that we lead?
I can't hear you.
Well, it's Carly.
So here's why I'm here. Eric, do you want to try leaving and coming back in?
Yeah, let me do that.
All right. So, Danny, how you doing?
Technology, folks. Oh, boy.
Well, hi, theater, We're doing a playwriting class. We can talk about that. That's a big success right now.
We could, except we wrapped up last night, right?
Well, we have the next 2 sessions coming up, though, that are sold out.
Yeah, we do. We have a session that starts August 5th, I think.
Woohoo!
Is the next session that starts. And we're going to be streaming some new work.
Maybe now? Better?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Fantastic.
Yes. You hear us?
Yeah, this is perfect. No delay. You're not frozen. Life is good.
That's all right. You keep my job.
There we
Thanks,
go.
Eric.
It's figured, you being a film guy, we have to do another take.
Well, of course, why not? It's all good.
Yeah, right. So here's the question.
Fire away.
How did you find your way into this crazy life that we lead? What drove you to fall in love with the theater?
The off the cuff answer is I don't know. And on the same side that I say that, I'll tell you that I always knew. And when I was going through high school, I went to high school in West Springfield, and I don't think we had a theater program back then. I don't know what the curriculum there is now, but back then I don't remember if there were any shows or anything. So it's something that you put in the back of your head and that's it. But I knew I wanted to do it. And when I got to college, so now all of a sudden you start seeing all of these notices going up for auditions and everything. And I didn't. I stayed away from it. And I was scared to actually go in and do the auditions. And it wasn't until really the gun was to my head, Second, it was first semester senior year. And I said, if I'm ever going to do this, if this is something I always wanted to do, never had the opportunity to do it, it's going to happen now. And that's when I signed up for classes, and that's when I signed up for my first auditions, and I loved it. As much as I knew I was going to, I did.
Yeah.
Crazy.
For you folks who are watching just to give you a little bit of background, Erick is an original West Side guy who's kind of been away from West Side for 14, 15 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Out in New York for a bit, and then out in Los Angeles, doing that kind of movie thing out there.
The LA thing.
Yeah, the LA thing. But we managed to snag him back here for a couple of shows. His first show, we could talk about that. Visiting Mr. Green. Did we figure out what year that was? Back.
98, maybe 90. Yeah. I know that I had just moved into my apartment on the West Side, and what was awesome about visiting Mr. Green is the apartment that I originally had. I was over on the East Side in the 20s, and it was a great apartment, and it was a good deal, but it was still expensive. And I said, I'm in New York. That's great. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, but I have no way right now to move forward. There's no way to take off and do shows and then come back. So I said, I want to start doing shows. I want to really start doing this. So the first step in doing any of that was to actually find another place. And I did. It fell into my lap. And I ended up living in my roommate was awesome, had a 2-bedroom, and I think it was about 386 square feet total. I mean, just this tiny, tiny thing. The rooms, our bedrooms were jail cells, but it was only like $650 a month. And I'm in Manhattan in Hell's Kitchen. And it was just like, okay, that's what I needed. And now I can start doing shows. And I swear to you, Danny, you wouldn't know this. Maybe 6 or 7 weeks after I moved in, I got the phone call. Do you want to do Visiting Mr. Green? And I'm like, yep. Okay, that's exactly what needed to happen. And that was a magical, magical show.
You know, we should, I mean, that was such a long time ago. I don't know how many people watching actually got to see that show. We should get, you should give them a little kind of capsule description of the play.
That show, from what I remember, because we're going back a lot of years now, it was a 2-man show. So the challenge on that one is that not only was I going to be on stage all of the time, and it was a big break in a way, because to have that kind of experience where that early on in the career, you are on stage that much. I'm also going up against a guy that had been in that show for, I think he'd done 3 different productions prior to this one, or 4 different productions prior to this one. So he walked in on day 1. I mean, he didn't have to learn any lines. He didn't have to learn anything. He knew everything. So it was
kind of a favorite of the author too.
He was a favorite of the author. He's a great guy. I mean, he's a great, great, great guy. And he was so understanding of that position too, and very, very gracious with his energy. And that was, that was awesome. So yeah, so to come in and do that and try to nail all that down and go into production, that was good. That was a really good show.
Yeah, give the folks, we're looking at some snapshots, some production photos, but give the folks a little background of the story of the play.
No, I don't. I'm looking at this for the first time in a long time, but I would say in this particular photo, if we're going to go back, I believe Mr. Green was a shut-in, and I had decided that I was going to be taking him food and whatnot, and just looking in on him, and he was a very gruff person, and slowly we had to get together and we had to get to know each other. And I think by the end of Act 1, I had to tell Mr. Green that I was in fact gay. And I knew in doing so that it was going to create conflict with him, because this is not something that he was cool with at all.
Yeah.
So then the second half was resolving all of that. And in the process of resolving all of that, there was a whole thing where because he was so gruff, he had a tough relationship with his own daughter. Right. So in resolving the issues with me, he was going to resolve the issues with his daughter. And I think that picture that you're throwing up God, I don't even remember that one, but I think that moment where, I walked in and it was a rainy night and I had just had it at that point, and I just walked in and I let him have it, and, come on, guy, you got to come around. And, but it was, I don't remember this one. I don't remember hugging him.
Well, I think weren't you, this was part of a settlement with the court, that you were kind of actually assigned or directed, or part of a plea.
Oh, that's right, because I was working for American Express at the time, and I was a businessman. I had no time for it. That's right. That's right.
Sorry, folks. It was that long ago.
It was. So, yeah, really, honestly, I just sorry.
Really lovely story about Harvard Man who played Mr. Green. That was the actor's name, Harvard Man, Mann. Well, of course, that wasn't the name he was born with. I don't remember the name he was born with. It was something like Sidney Bernstein or something,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But his in-laws always wanted their daughter to marry a Harvard man. So he changed his name to Harvard Man, and so he could brag to his in-laws that, well, you see, your daughter actually married a Harvard man.
And you know what? That's actually really awesome for him, because that's the kind of sense of humor that he had. And he was a very light, open-minded, humorous guy, loved to have fun. And then he had to get on stage and just be this miserable grump, for a couple hours a night. So he did his job very well.
So after visiting Mr. Green, you went back to New York and then were there for a while before Los Angeles?
Went back to New York, pulled the Disappearing Act, got in with a really great teacher. If I'd like to make a note of that going forward, because if we end up talking about things that younger actors can do, this is definitely in that vein. I had done a few classes. That was great. I had got into I had another home, and that was really important to establish that. Something outside of a survival job, something that was in acting. And then from there, I knew that I needed to go and do something else. I wanted a teacher. I wanted a school. I wanted something to get into. And he had to be really good. I wasn't a fan after being with this one particular school. And, I was watching how they were going about their process. I didn't want to go in a direction of a school that advertised a lot. So I didn't want anybody that advertised a lot. And here I am, I'm working at a nightclub as a bartender. And I ended up getting into a conversation with a cocktail waitress that I knew. I mean, we just never talked about this stuff. I didn't know that she was an actress. So one night we just had this conversation, and she said, well, I actually study with a guy and he doesn't advertise at all. I went, okay, so tell me more. So she said, well, here's his number, give him a call. And I did. And the audition was he had 2 positions in the class. And I walked in, we sat down, we had a talk, it was great. And then they said, okay, let's start doing some work here. And I said, all right, well, let's do it. And he said, I just want to let you know, I've auditioned about 600 people for these 2 spots. And there are still 2 spots available. So if this just ends in a handshake, just know that it may just end in a handshake, and that's okay. And I said, okay. And the thing about that is I like that pressure. I can't describe it, but I like that pressure. So at that point, I've got nothing to lose. So I do it. And it was a Tuesday. I'll never forget it. And he said, all right, I'll see you in class Wednesday, 3:00. And I said, so I'm in. And he said, well, yeah, until one of us screws up. And from that point, that's when everything started to move. I did walk into that class at Wednesday at 3:00, and everybody in that class was infinitely more talented than I was. It was terrifying. And you have to do that. And that's the point that I want to make. If we get into a thing with younger actors, you have to get out of a comfort zone. It is super, super important, because without that, it probably wouldn't have moved. It was a lot easier to start auditioning. It was a lot easier to meet agents. I ended up picking up an agent at that point, and that's when I got my first movie role.
So how long were you in New York before you made the move to Los Angeles? And was it the movie role that prompted the move to LA?
That's a really good question. Yeah, in a way it was. It was kind of twofold. So that movie role, it was a fairly big deal. Mark Margolis was in it, and most people know him now from I can't remember, but that role that movie ended up getting into the Brussels International Film Festival for fantasy and horror. And the lead at the time, Christopher Denham, he couldn't make it. So the director said, "Do you want to go?" And I said, "Yeah, of course I do." So I ended up doing that, and then that's great. I put that off. We went over to Brussels. It was fantastic. I came back, and then I ended up getting an audition for the Intiman Theater in Seattle, Tom Joe, The Grapes of Wrath. And I ended up booking that, and that was huge. The Intiman Theater, I mean, what is it, 600-700 seats? I mean, I showed up, they laid out a production. They were going to put a 30-foot river in the stage. They carved out a hole in the stage. It was 4 feet deep. We were going swimming every night in this river. It was incredible. And that's when I met my first manager. He was up there in Seattle looking at his own talent, and he saw me and sent me a card backstage and said, "Why don't you get to LA?" So I said, "Great, now I have representation in LA. I don't have to worry about anything." So I get out to LA and I start up, and then behind all of going to LA and starting to audition, here comes this thing that happened, a year or 2 years earlier from Brussels. And somebody that I hung out with in Brussels, and we were just having a really good time because we're at a film festival together, and he was pushing his film. He said, "I got this script. I want you to read it." So I read it, and that turns out to be Ironclad, and that is actually something that I ended up co-writing, and that went into production, and that's how that movie got made. It's another whole saga.
Yeah.
So
it was kind of went from the stage in Seattle to screenwriting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how it came together. And I said, we were talking about it, and he said, "Well, what would you do?" And I said, "Well, listen, if I'm going to come on board with this," and we had been talking back and forth, and he was a friend, and I was just throwing ideas at him. It wasn't like I was trying to get a writing gig out of this. And after about 6 months of this, he said, "Listen, I want you to come, and I want you to write this. We're going to have to do this." And I said, "Okay." So I said, "I've never written anything before." And he said, "Well, that's all right, because we've been talking about this for 6 months. I know where your mind is." And the only way that I could apply myself to the writing, because I had never done it before, is that when we went in on day one, I just improvised all the scenes out. So now I'm all these different characters, for better or for worse, in a studio apartment in Los Angeles, just going through and acting everything out and saying it out loud. And that's slowly how the writing came together. And that's kind of how I married the two. And if I didn't have the experiences of doing the whole acting, that would have never happened.
Right. And so, I mean, I know that you continue to write. I've even sent you my own stuff.
Which I love.
We get you back here. What once a year on occasion. You'd be back here visiting with your mom, and
that's right.
You and I would get together and hoist a few beers, or we'd talk about scripts and writing, and I'd pass off the latest thing I was working on, and get your feedback on it. And so it was great. And then Tuna got us.
So yeah, so just to follow up on what you said, so I think it was about 3 years ago. I'm out in LA, I'm doing the summers, and I said I'm tired of summers in LA. I miss summers in Northeast. So about 3 years ago, I started coming back July and August. So I got into a little rhythm there. Yeah. So last year, I knew I was going to be coming back. I didn't know I was going to do the show, but I wanted to make a change. I hadn't been on stage since that time in Seattle. Stayed away from the stage. When I went to LA, I just said, this is not stage. New York is stage. LA, not stage. So I stayed away from it from a long time, but I knew I wanted to get back into it again. I missed it. And then there's this phone call again out of the blue, the same thing, the same way you did with Visiting Mr. Green. And you said, so listen, here's the script, read it, tell me what you think. So I said, of course. So, send it along. And there's some, I love to do, I'm one of those guys that multitask, right? You do 18 different things at once because you think you can. And so I put a movie on and I open up the script and I start reading it. And I think I called you the next day and I said I was going to do it. I hadn't finished. I forgot about the movie. Just was going through the script, and it just captured my attention the whole way through. And I said, yeah, this is something to do. There's no question.
Well, we were just winding down. I think our audition process. We auditioned for an entire week for all of the shows in the coming season, and
right.
And Tuna Goddess was going to be the opening production, and I think I was out in the alley having a smoke and chit-chatting with Aurora Ferraro, and she goes, well, what about Erick? Because you had been back earlier in the springtime, and
yeah,
I think
that's right. Stop by just to say hi. Right? Yeah, that's right.
And Aurora says, well, what about that guy? And I said, ooh, that's a really good choice. And that's when I called you.
That's cool. I'm glad you did. That was a great experience. I will say, probably more nervous the first day of rehearsals than opening night. That is the honest truth. Yeah. You come back to a theater, everybody's been doing theater, and I haven't. And it's just like, well, we got to find out where we're at here. And you just jump into the fire, right?
Yeah. Right.
So
jumping into the fire. And I know you ended up doing a good bit of research. What is that television show?
Right. It's Wicked Tuna, man. Wicked Tuna. So I again, no idea that you're calling. And that winter and spring, I fell into Wicked Tuna. I don't know if I ever knew it existed or not, but I got completely wrapped up in it. That was my show that I'd go to just to unwind. Easy to just watch a couple episodes. I think I probably watched 4 or 5 seasons of these guys catching tuna. And then all of a sudden, at the end of all of that, I get the phone call and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll be a tuna fisherman now. It's perfect.
It's kismet or something.
Absolutely, it was. And the reels and the rod were the same size.
Oh, sure.
So kudos to you for that.
Yeah. We had Bev Brown, who's our scenic artist. Her son was a tuna fisherman down in the Cape, and he had this incredible equipment. I mean, this gear, one rod and reel is worth about $6,000.
You're huge.
He had 3 of them, so and was kind enough to loan them to us. So we had really kind of a very authentic gear to work with,
and we didn't bust them.
But that was fun. Hey, a couple of questions. We always have to ask this because whenever we do a talk back in the audience, the audience members always ask this, and it's like, how in the world do you learn all those lines?
One day at a time, right? There's a lot of that. By the way, amazing set, and that was amazing. Can you put the cast picture back up again, please, Carly? I don't know if you can hear me, but that cast picture. I mean, that was a great group of people right there. There is no question, and we produced a little bit of magic, and that was fun. And it was a great set. To learn the lines, everybody has a different process. I would say that my process over the years is don't be married to one process. And there are times when you can read the lines and the lines are going to fall into place, and that's great. And then there's other times where you read the lines and it doesn't make sense. And there's going to be other times where in that role that you have, you're going to read some lines and they never settle and you keep forgetting them. And you just have to be patient with yourself. And you have to do a bunch of different things. But ultimately, what the audience hears is rehearsal. And it is the rehearsal because I can sit here, and I did. I learned the lines. I almost had them by myself. If there was nobody around by myself, I was off book, right? But what does that really do? That doesn't mean anything because I'm not playing in the orchestra yet. I'm just practicing. So then you have to take all of that. And even if you're completely off book at that point, you have got to walk into rehearsals and you have everybody else, and everybody else has got their lines, and everybody else has their life to live. And when that happens, suddenly all the lines that you thought that you had memorized, they go away. And you just have to be patient. So that is the other thing to learning lines, is being patient so that you can start absorbing what they're doing and they can start absorbing what you're doing. And when that happens, when you start getting into that rehearsal process where the layers start to take place, it actually is very, very easy to remember your lines at that point. And it's just part of the process. You have to do it.
Yeah, we're talking about the brain being a muscle, and it's muscle memory as much as anything.
Yeah. There's no question.
Once they're there, yeah.
But what happens when that muscle doesn't work right? And it's in the middle of a performance, because that happened too.
All right, since you brought it up.
It was great. Everything was great. It was great. I'm in the bar scene with Lexi, and I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. We got to a point, it was obviously my line, and I had nothing there. I mean, absolutely nothing. I didn't have an idea of what I was supposed to say. I didn't have an image. I didn't have the word. There you go. Pretty much that would work. So the only thing that you can do in that moment is you take a deep breath and you exhale and you hope to God that all your work comes through and it pops up. I got lucky that day, but I think Lexi was patient enough to have me go through that little hiccup. And then it happened again 2 days later in the same scene.
Yeah.
So now you have to figure that out. But I think the second time that it happened, Lexi actually picked up her beer and she just talked underneath her beer. And if she didn't know her lines and my lines, that scene was not moving forward. So Lexi, if you're watching, you get gold stars for that. There's no question. Shoo!
Gold star for Lexi. Yeah. How about do you have a pre-show ritual that you go through?
Oh, yeah, I do, but it's not the same for every show. So the pre-show ritual that I had for Tuna Goddess was show up. And this particular show, everybody liked Oreo cookies. We liked Oreo cookies and we liked the lemon bars from Costco. So you show up and you have a couple of those. And then after you get into costume, I'd get into costume and I would disappear. So about 15 minutes, 20 minutes before, I just had about 4 or 5 songs that I would play. And I would go upstairs at the theater and I would hide off in the back wardrobe and I would just listen to the music. And it just, I don't know if that's method or not, it just was a buffer zone. So whatever was going on in the day, when I walked into that room and I played the music, the day ended. And then a new day began. And that was when I walked down the stairs and, then we do the performance. And everybody was, that was really cool. And I'll tell you, one of the pre-show routines that we did that I loved was like, but that became
help, Carly.
I walk away for 2 seconds. Eric, do you want to try leaving and come back in
still?
again? Oh, wait, maybe he's back now. Eric?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay. Never mind. Going away again.
Hey, what's up? Danny, you there? Danny?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. So that flight call became that was a ritual.
Oh,
right?
Sure.
Because again, it was a great chance for everybody to get together and just say hello at the beginning of the night. And I just think that those things, when you're doing a cast, I think those things are really, really important because it pulls everybody away from what they're doing and you bring it in and then it becomes more like a family routine. And that's the only way that the connection and the magic happens, I think.
So, this is a kind of a tough one. So, how do you compare, or do you have a preference actually working in film versus working in live theater?
No, it's funny. I would say,
What will he say? The suspense is killing me.
How is this happening, Carly?
Could be a storm coming through. Could be, bad karma. I don't know.
Wait.
Eric, what were you going to say? The suspense was killing us.
That's called a pregnant pause. I did that on purpose. I shut everything out on purpose so everybody's just on the seat of their pants for this. I think theater's magical. And I think the big thing with theater that, again, if you really want to take a look at this and pull a lesson out of it, you have to learn the moment to moment. And I don't think that's something that a lot of people, that everybody in film and TV aspires to, because you don't have to, because you have the luxury of not having to worry about it. And I think the skill and the joy of creating a character is being relaxed enough, being prepared enough so that when you are in that moment, you just trust that you're going to be able to build whatever that build is. Sometimes the build's like this, sometimes the build's like this, sometimes it's just, but theater gives you that. It gives you that opportunity for moment to moment, and it trains your mind that if you do want to go to film and TV, yes, I was screaming at Lexi there. If you do want to go to film and TV, you should absolutely imperatively learn that step so that you know where you are when they yell cut. If you have to come back to it again, you'll be able to find it again because you believe in the moment before, you have your moment after. And that's what you do in theater over and over and over again. And it is go ahead.
So, you'd say it's a fairly easy transition for a stage actor to move into film?
I think it is a lot more feasible. Like if we were to really look at our celebrities, I think you'd probably find that 90% of them came from theater, right? And I think that there is a reason for that. And as hokey as it sounds, I think that theater actors have a learned, acquired talent as part of their toolbox to radiate. And that radiation is what really creates everything that you're trying to do. You can't be an emotion, but it's that radiation. And when you have actors that show up and they want to do their thing on set, if they didn't come from that background, they're not going to really worry about the moment before. They're not going to really worry about the build. And then they're just relying on the very moment that they yell action. They're just relying that in that split second from that moment, they're going to be everything that you would see from somebody who's on a Broadway stage that started it and has continued to do it over and over and over again through the hours. So yeah, I think stage actors just have a better advantage overall. I really do.
Well, there's that discipline.
Tremendous. And the discipline of learning lines.
Yeah.
You know.
Hey, Liam is watching us, and he says, let's talk about the can toss.
So that was part of it. Going back to the Tuna Goddess, that was part of our pre-show routine, wasn't it? And we had that can toss, and Liam he was a college baseball player, and he knew exactly how to throw that. So we had to practice that can toss, and every single night that we threw that can, we weren't exactly sure where exactly it was going to go. So, but those are the moments that you welcome, because those are the moments that keep you present, right? So that's what you want. So that can toss was and I think, what did we have? 2 of them? We had 3 of them throughout the production every night, you know?
Yeah, every night, yeah.
It's good stuff.
But I think if I don't remember a can toss during the show. I don't remember a can toss, going awry at all.
No. I mean, I think I dropped one. I think one made it into the water. But yeah, I think overall we were doing great. We threw strikes almost every night. So
I think so. Not necessarily in the warm up, but in the show.
No, the warm up. But that's what warm ups are for, right? You got to make those mistakes. Just.
Here's Liam's comment. He said, "You are a very generous actor, my friend."
You are a great tosser of cans, my friend.
Oh man.
That's funny.
There was something that we were talking about the other day about you acquiring. This is going back to visiting Mr. Green, acquiring props for the show. Yeah,
so that was actually it was my last trip to New York before I was going to go up and be up in Massachusetts full time to go through the preparations for this. And there is I don't remember the name of the deli that is in Visiting Mr. Green, but it's this one deli. It's on 72nd Street over by Broadway. And so I walked in and I said to the guys, listen, I'm looking for some to-go packages. And, it's New York City. So when you walk in and you say something like that to somebody in New York, they immediately think that you're crazy and something terrible is about to unfold. So they all start looking at you, cockeyed. And then when I explained that I was in Visiting Mr. Green, and the second that I said Visiting Mr. Green, the waiter just lit up. Oh, we get this all the time. The show happens all the time. Yeah, come here. And they gave me all the packages. They gave me it was. So these guys, having never seen the show, look at their response to the whole thing. And that was the same way that happened. You bring all that, you put it into the production, you have the production go. And I think you had an extended run on that one. That was a sold out show almost every night.
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, people really responded to that show. And Jeff Barron, the author, came up and we had a nice talk back afterward. And so, yeah.
Yeah, Jeff did. Yeah. I hadn't quite had my lines down, speaking of learning lines, by the time he got there. But by the end of the show, all was well. All was well.
We were talking the other day about So it was. I don't know if we have this picture of you from 1930s. Do we have that one?
Oh,
You're reluctant to show that one.
Which one was that again?
What's that?
Which one are you looking for?
That was the
I don't
David
know.
Fincher film.
I don't know if we have that one, unfortunately.
Yeah, so it's all right. I'll just so what happened is there's a David Fincher film coming out, Mank, and it's got a lot of press. It's going to be very interesting. I think it's coming out on Netflix. And no, I'm not in it. So couldn't get the audition. Fantastic. I'll play that game. I still wanted to see what a Fincher set and a Fincher budget look like. So that is when I luckily submitted myself for extra work. And the first extra background gig that I got, they said, "Do you want to work 4 days on this?" I have no idea how it happened. I knew nobody. And yeah, of course I do. So it turns out that the extra gig that I did, it wasn't going to be 50, 60, 70 people. It was only 15 of us. And it was a very intimate set. So there's a lot that I can't say for the whole non-disclosure thing, but what an incredible experience. What an incredible experience being that close to watching David Fincher with these Gary Oldman. I mean, these actors are at the top of their game. And you learn, you don't have to be doing it to learn from it, right? So being that close to it and watching how a set of that magnitude operates, that was a lesson. And the detail and how everybody just kind of, it was just this slow moving thing and everything got done. And you never saw anybody hurry, at least on the days that I was there. And everybody was on time and everybody knew their lines. And it was just this slow thing. And it created this, I don't know what the outcome is going to be. I don't even know if I made it past the cutting room floor as background. I don't know. But it was a pretty remarkable experience to see that and to watch him work with these actors.
Was it essentially one set? I mean, it was a replication of what, Hearst Castle?
It was everywhere, yeah. So they replicated Hearst Castle. They had another one where they were, we worked on this. It was one of those situations where they shut down an entire street, and they brought in 40 or 50 cars to 1930 cars, and they just lined the street with the 1930 cars. And now you're walking down the block, and everything that they're capturing is in the 1930s. And the costumes, when I went in to get fit, I was blown away because I had never seen anything like this. Again, we're talking about David Fincher here. We celebrate him. There must have been 500 suits. The entire wall was just hats for men, and there was another entire wall, hats for women, but everybody was so chill. It was just such a great experience to work on that. And I'm glad, because normally I don't do that. But for that one, for what it was, for the whole 1930s thing, and that's a big thing in Hollywood right now, everybody is, shooting these period pieces. I wanted to see what the difference was. And yeah, I am sure we're all going to see that on film. You'll see that quality.
Yeah. Well, do you think it'd be out when, next spring?
No, I don't know. November, December.
Oh, it's that close.
Yeah.
And what's the title of the film? Has it got a working title?
Oh, Mank. It's the title of the film is Mank, and from what I understand, it is about the true making of Citizen Kane. And it is about the real screenwriter behind Citizen Kane, Herman Mankiewicz. And that is Gary Oldman's character. Great guy. Great actor. Yeah. He was great on set.
Was Orson Welles represented in the film?
Orson Welles was represented in the film. As a matter of fact, I think William Randolph Hearst was Charles Dance. I think everybody knows Charles Dance from Game of Thrones. He was the evil Lannister father. But yeah, these guys up close, I mean, it's impressive. And then when you have David Fincher, and I mean, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here. He likes to take a lot of takes. So now you're watching these guys over and over and over again. And that just never gets tiring at all.
Yeah.
Because talk about, like, look, they're all, I mean, to tie it all in, these guys are all theater actors, right? So we're talking about the moment and carrying the moment and building the moment. And now you have these guys, and now they had to do 30 takes. And these guys are all coming from theater. So every single time they start, they go through. They start, they go through. They're already there before the camera yells action. And you see that culmination, and then you see the people at the very top of the game executing like that. And you just say, yeah, that's it.
Hey, a couple of things getting back to Tuna Goddess. Here's a question, another question from Liam. Did you get sick of Twinkies?
Yeah, no, yes. I don't think I'm ever going to eat another Twinkie again as long as I live.
Yeah, but they were good.
They were great. They were great. Every day, had a couple Twinkies every day, and that's going to be it for the Twinkies. I actually still have one tucked away. I saved a bunch of things from the show at the end of the show. Backstage manager Aurora, she gave everybody a Twinkie, and I am sitting on one of those, and I'm never going to open it. And something tells me that in 50 years, if I were to open it, it will taste exactly the same as it would have last year.
Yeah. Aurora was the Twinkie goddess.
Yes, she was indeed.
Hey, and so the other thing we need to talk about in Tuna Goddess is the blood pack and the knives.
Oh, the blood pack. So, you have these. It's a prop, and I had to bleed. I had to accidentally stab myself, and I had to bleed. So, how are we going to do that? And, hats off to Dawn, hats off to Aurora. We all put our heads together on this one. We had different incarnations, and ultimately we came down with the winner was they sewed a patch into the inside of the shirt here. So my camera, and you sewed a patch in the inside of the shirt, and you put the little pouch here, and it was all up to me. I had to get that hand to come around, and I had to get my hand to hit it. And either the blood was going to come out or it wasn't. Unfortunately, sometimes the blood came up. It didn't come out. That's my fault. That's nobody else's fault. But that's live theater, and that's why we do it.
Yeah. And what the knives were these little plastic. I mean, they look pretty good, but they were these little plastic retractable things, right? Spring-loaded retractables. And what was it? There's one night the blade just broke off or something.
Yeah, that's right. And then you got to play with it. What are you going to do? The blade did break off, and you just, okay, there goes the knife. Now what? Well, we're just going to have to pretend on that one because the knife went over the boat. There's no way to pick it back up. So, but it's good. I mean, these are the things that take place, and this is why you do it.
Yeah, that's for sure. The you mentioned we talked the other day about advice for aspiring young actors. We talked a little bit about it earlier, and you talked about also exercises that keep you active on a daily basis. Now, do you mean like physical exercises like push-ups or running 5 miles, that kind of exercise, or is it more a brain thing?
I think, listen, if I were to go back, if somebody would be able to put me in the Wayback Machine and I were to start over, I would have done what everybody said when I was younger. Just do it. And I think there's this thing that happens overall with actors that doesn't happen with musicians, right? So the musician has the instrument outside of them, and they sit down and they practice that instrument every day. It's something that they can pick up. It's something that they hold. It's something that makes sound. It's an external item. And actors should also do that every single day. And when you're younger, you don't have to worry about, okay, when am I going to get the job? When am I getting the job? Sure, you think about it. Sure, you dream about it. But the most important thing to do when you're younger is to just do it. It's just to play every single day. And, you know, step one in all of that, get a book of verbs, get a book of adverbs. Go through that book. You're going to find words that stick to you. You're going to find words that mean something to you, and not all of them will, and that's okay. And you hand that book to somebody else, and it's going to be a whole different set of words for them, and they could find a whole different meaning to those words. But you will eventually use those words for so many years of your life, because adverbs and verbs that's the actor's lifeblood. That's where everything starts. You look at a script, you have to figure out, you know, what they're doing, what you want, what you are trying to say, what you're not trying to say, hopes, fears, and all of that. You try to intellectualize that and write a book about it. You're never going to be able to play it. And that's a big mistake that I think actors have, is that they're working too hard on the intellectual and not enough here. And if you keep it simple and you narrow it down, and you're picking up, just like I said, you have 20 verbs that you play with, 20 adverbs that you play with, and what that means and what the exercises could be that you can create from that. You keep it simple, you keep it light, and you do that every day. That is your workout. You want to do push-ups? That's awesome. You want to run 5 miles? That's great. But this has to be part of it, because it will never leave you. And this is honing your instrument. You know, you got to play your instrument.
Right. Gotcha.
You know,
We should mention that, what is that date, Carly? August 25th, right? We're doing a reading of the play that I've been writing during this quarantine period, called The Lady's Slipper. And Erick is, you're going to be reading one of the parts. You've taken on one of those.
Jim.
Insurance Man Jim.
Yeah. Jim's got, he's got some surprises coming, doesn't he?
He does.
That's all I'm saying.
All right. What else?
So is that reading? Is that done here?
Say again.
Is that reading? Is that going to be done here? Is that how we do that?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yep.
Awesome.
All right. I think we're winding down. What else? Did we miss anything? You recall any interesting audience feedback?
You know, in Tuna Goddess, when I used to walk in, so there's that moment I got to walk down the stage, and I have to confront, Lexi's character. And, the beauty of the Majestic is, so I'm standing in the lobby, the audience is watching the show, and the Majestic has this thing. They just, the way the seats are set up, it's like an oversized living room. It's not so much like a stage. And I think that's to the benefit of everybody, the actors and the audience. So it was awesome in that moment. And because of that intimate space and the way it carries around to the sides, and people feel close, and they should. And as the actor, you should feel close to them as well. It's not this huge, proscenium thrust with 5,000 people, and you have to worry about a whole bunch of different techniques. So the best part of that was, after I would finish that, I would walk back up those stairs, and the whispers that I would get from people during the performance, that made it worth it. And sometimes somebody would reach out and they just give you a tap. And sometimes somebody would you could hear a sniffle. Maybe you made somebody cry. I mean, the scene was beautiful, and Lexi did a great job with it as well. So yeah, the feedback, that's the feedback. It's anonymous. It's sincere. It happened in the moment, and it happened just after another moment. And I think, again, that's why you do theater.
I do recollect that, that scene happened right after the bar fight, right?
that's
So,
that's
I do, I do remember you walking down, making your entrance down the aisle, right? And it was, I do remember hearing a phone, uh-oh,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then the turnaround, when you leave that scene and you're going back up.
Jay did a great job with that flip in the scene. And I mean, it's all there, isn't it? You just kind of got to get out of the way and let it just happen.
Right.
And for the people to feel comfortable to do that too, because they know what they're doing, but they wanted to say thank you. And okay, it's awesome.
Right. Let's see. Any other advice for aspiring actors?
Do
find the exercises that keep you active, and what you said, bring 110% to every show.
Yeah, so that's something that you should definitely, no matter what show you're in, as you go forward, I think it is very important to bring 110%. Like I said, my first day for Tuna Goddess, my first day of rehearsals was very nerve-wracking for a lot of reasons, partly because I hadn't been on stage for so long. Let's see how this is all going to work out. I'm coming in from the West Coast. Everybody's kind of here. You're the outsider. You have to be open to learning in acting that it is not all about you, that it is about everybody that is there. And I think it's really important to remember that. And you giving 110% isn't just you learning your lines and being prepared and being available. If being prepared, it's about you being available for everybody else as well. And there's really no way to define that. There's really no exercise to set yourself up for that. That is a decision that you have to make. And as you go forward with your training, and you are going to be doing certain exercises, you're going to find a particular teacher that you really like, that you respond to, that says what fits inside you, and everybody's going to have a different teacher, and everybody's going to have a different way to approach it, and that's fine. Just as long as you remember, as you go through that process and you learn those things, you're preparing yourself to be in the moment for everybody else that's there. Because you can't create the magic that everybody's buying a ticket for by yourself. Impossible. And nobody buying a ticket wants to see you by yourself trying to create the magic. It's the courage. Always remember to have courage to let all of it go, lay it all out, have the other person lay it all out, and you just kind of work on it in the moment. And the work and your training and the rehearsals, that's what gets you there to that refined moment that, when you walk back up the stairs, people want to tap your leg and they want to say, good job, in the middle of a show. That's the payoff.
Yeah. That's fair.
So
what do you think? I mean, we're in this crazy COVID pandemic time, and LA certainly shut down, and all the theaters across the country are shut down, including New York. And so what do you see for yourself going forward? I mean, do you find yourself getting back to LA at some point?
It's a great question.
Down the road, or?
It's a great question, Danny. So like I said at the top of this whole thing, that I had been coming home in the summers because I love New England summers. So right now it's what I've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years, and I'm enjoying and celebrating summer. I did make a decision back in June that I was going to let go of LA for a while. I think they got some things to figure out. no judgment here. I think with 8 or 9 different types of unions working on a film set or a TV set, I think it's going to be really hard for all the unions to figure out what's best for their members and what's best for everybody on the set. And it's going to take a minute to work all that out and move forward. And I think that we're going to see this, they're shut down as a result of it. They got to figure this whole thing out. So I'm probably going to be here for a while. And, we're talking about theater right now. And I'm just thinking, I don't know, why not New York? I mean, I love New York. There's so much theater to do in New York. Okay, yeah, there's Broadway, but off. There's just so much theater to do. And when all of this hopefully settles out quickly, those opportunities are going to be there, because I don't know, it just feels like every 7 or 8 years or so, something happens and the business kind of cleans out a little bit. There was a writer's strike, it slowed things down. People clean out. There was a strike in the early 2000s. All of a sudden, all the commercials suddenly dried up in New York. Everything went up to Canada, and it just creates a shifting and a moving, and people come in and people come out, and that's just that's the nature of the crazy life, as you said at the beginning of this. So I'm thinking I'm going to hang around and drop into New York, Danny.
Yeah. Well, knock on wood. I mean, we'll, we're scheduled to reopen in January 9th. And
that's great news. When are you doing auditions?
That's a good question. That wouldn't be until next June.
Oh, all right.
I have to pick that season as well.
You got a lot of work ahead of you then.
I've got some.
Oh,
But
good.
it seems to me, we were talking about this earlier tonight. We were on a Zoom conference with a lot of our staff and Actors Equity, who we have an agreement with. The Actors Equity is going to be the one that determines when they'll allow their members to go back to work in places like the Majestic. And
so Actors Equity is going to open up Broadway, from Broadway all the way down to all the tiers. Is that how it's working?
Yeah. But I think each theater, my sense is that each theater individually has to develop a plan and submit it to Equity, and Equity has to approve that plan, whether it's social distancing backstage or sanitize, get one of those sanitizing sprayers, and the backstage has to be sprayed, and the theater has to be sprayed, and the cafe and the restrooms has to be sprayed, and every day, and we have to provide masks, and we have to provide hand sanitizer, and who knows. But I think my sense is that we have to develop a plan that's specific to the Majestic. Equity has to sign off on it before we can move forward. So it's gonna be interesting.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Let's hope sooner than later.
Yeah, that'd be nice. All right. Well, I think that's a wrap, as they say in the film business.
That's awesome. This was a lot of fun. Thank you. Thank you for asking me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Eric. So thank you to everyone for tuning in. And a reminder once again, let's see, the Velveteen Rabbit is a Majestic Children's Theater show that's streaming right now. And our next Behind the Curtain at the Majestic, our buddy Dave Madsen. So please tune in. That's next week, July 30th at 7 o'clock. Thanks again.
Great. Thank you.
You bet.